The night he shouldn't have followed her. The Whitmore mansion always felt too quiet at night. Chase Whitmore stood near the grand window in the hallway, a crystal glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. His eyes weren't on the view of the moonlit garden below, they were fixed on the reflection in the glass. A young woman with a child curled up beside her on the couch. Alina, the nanny. She had been with them for 7 months now, arriving just 2 weeks after his wife Laura died in that horrific accident that still left shadows under Chase's eyes. His 5-year-old son, Max, hadn't spoken for days back then. No eating, no playing, just silence and tears. Until Alina came. She didn't arrive like other nannies he'd hired before. She wasn't flashy, overly sweet, or desperate to please. She was calm, observant, patient. Within 3 days, Max smiled again. Within a week, he was drawing dinosaurs and reading stories with her on the rug. It almost felt like healing. But lately, things weren't adding up. Chase wasn't just a grieving widower. He was a man who had built an empire by reading people. And something about Elena's eyes, her sudden disappearances, her guarded silence when asked about her past, it started to itch at his instincts. Tonight, something strange happened again. At dinner, Alina had excused herself to take a call. Max had spilled juice, and as Chase helped clean it up, he spotted Alina standing just outside the patio doors. Not talking, not crying, just standing, still, as if frozen by something she couldn't face. When she returned, her smile was forced, her hands trembling. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Just a personal matter." "Always, sir." Even when Max had started calling her Lena, she remained formal, polite, distant. That was when Chase decided he needed to know who she really was. By 8:42 p.m., Max was tucked in bed with his favorite stuffed tiger, snoring softly. By 8:47 p.m., Alina slipped out the front door. No purse, no jacket, despite the cold, just her phone in hand and her hair tied back, like she was on a mission. Chase followed, quietly, carefully. He didn't even change shoes, just grabbed his keys and slipped into his dark Range Rover, headlights off, trailing her at a cautious distance. She didn't take a cab or call a friend. She walked swiftly, past the corner bakery, through the dim streets behind a closed bookstore, and over the old footbridge that led to the forgotten side of town. 20-8 minutes of walking and she never looked back. Then she turned into an alley between 2 shuttered warehouses. Chase parked, heart hammering. This wasn't just a personal errand. He waited 5 minutes, then 10, then he stepped out. The alley smelled of rust and rotting wood. The only light came from a flickering bulb above a rusted door. It looked abandoned. But inside it WASN single quotes T. Chase heard voices. Not loud, not yelling, but urgent. One was Elena's, the others were men, one calm, one sharp, and one with a voice that sounded far too rehearsed, like someone used to giving sermons. Chase found a cracked window, high up on the wall. He climbed onto an old crate, peering through the broken glass. What he saw didn't make sense. Alina was standing inside, surrounded by 3 men. One was holding a duffel bag, another had a camera, the third wore what looked like a priest's collar. Alina didn't look afraid, she looked angry. "You said I was free," she said, voice shaking. "You said I paid my debt." "You don't get to walk away from us, Alina," said the priest. "You owe more than you understand." "No, I gave you everything. I gave you my silence, my life. What else do you want?" The man with the bag opened it slowly. Chase couldn't see what was inside, but Elena's face went pale. "This wasn't part of the deal," she whispered. "This is illegal." "You always were the soft one," sneered the third man. "Maybe we remind you what loyalty means." And then Elena moved. Quick as lightning, she reached out and slapped the priest across the face. The sound echoed off the warehouse walls. "You're sick," she hissed. "All of you." The priest's smile didn't even flicker. "Then why did you come back, Alina? If you hated us so much." Her lips trembled. "Because I thought I could end it. I thought this was the final time." "You were wrong." Suddenly, the man with the camera turned toward the back window. "Did you hear that?" he said sharply. Chase ducked. Footsteps, fast, getting closer. He jumped off the crate and ran back to his car, his hands ice cold. As he started the engine, a door slammed open behind him. He didn't look back. Tires screeched as he peeled away from the alley and back onto the main road. His brain was screaming, every instinct telling him to drive faster, get home, forget what he saw. But he couldn't forget. At 3:11 a.m., Chase stood outside Max's room again, watching his son sleep peacefully, oblivious, safe. Or was he? What if Alina brought danger into their home? What if she was running from someone, or worse, part of something? He went downstairs and poured another drink, still untouched. Then, at 4:12 a.m., he heard the front door open. He walked to the hallway, just in time to see Alina enter. Her coat was gone, her feet bare, her eyes red. Not from crying, from exhaustion, from holding back something too heavy to carry anymore. Their eyes met. She froze. And in that silent, tension-filled hallway, she looked at him like she already knew. She knew he had followed her, and she didn't scold him. She didn't ask why. She just whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear, "Run." Chase didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study with the door locked, trying to piece everything together. Why was a priest involved? Why was there a camera, a bag? What debt did Alina think she owed? And most haunting of all, why did she, his nanny, the woman who cared for his child like a mother, look at him with such deep, helpless fear? The next morning, Alina made Max breakfast like nothing had happened. Pancakes, berries, a smile. But when Chase stepped into the kitchen, she didn't meet his eyes. Instead, she said softly, "I'm taking Max to the park today, just the usual." And he replied, just as calmly, "Sure, let me know if you need anything." Both of them pretending, both of them haunted, but only one of them knew what was truly coming. Her past wasn't buried. It was watching. Chase Whitmore didn't trust easily. Not anymore. After losing his wife Laura in a car crash that still made no sense, and then being left to raise Max alone, he had built walls around himself. High, thick ones. And yet somehow, Alina had slipped through them. Quiet, patient Alina. She had cared for Max like he was her own. She had made their lifeless home breathe again. But now, he wasn't sure who she was. He couldn't forget what he saw the night before. Alina standing in a warehouse surrounded by men, one with a priest's collar, one filming her, one threatening her. He couldn't forget her voice trembling with rage and fear. And most of all, he couldn't forget her final word to him when she returned home. Run. From what? And why him? The next morning, Chase tried to act normal, but his thoughts were far from it. He sat at the kitchen table, pretending to read emails on his laptop, while secretly watching Alina pack a small bag for Max juice boxes, snacks, wipes. Just like always, her hair was tied up, her clothes simple and neat. She looked exactly like the Alina he trusted. But now, he knew better. "Taking Max to the park?" he asked. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "It's Saturday. He loves the swings. I'll come with you." Her hand paused over the juice box. "You never come to the park. Maybe I should start." She glanced at him then, just for a moment. Something unreadable passed between them, a flicker of tension, of fear, but she didn't argue. The park was quiet. A cool breeze stirred the leaves as Max climbed the jungle gym, his little giggles echoing across the playground. Chase sat on a bench, watching carefully. Alina stood nearby, smiling at Max, but her body was tense. Her eyes kept flicking toward the street, like she was expecting someone. Chase waited until Max was distracted, then stepped closer to her. "What did you mean last night?" he asked quietly. "When you said run?" Her face didn't change, but her voice dropped to a whisper. "Not here." "Then where?" She hesitated, then said, "After lunch, meet me in the greenhouse. Don't bring your phone." He blinked. "Why?" "Because they're listening." She turned away before he could respond, crouching beside Max to tie his shoe, like nothing had been said at all. Back at the house, Chase could barely eat. He waited until Alina put Max down for his afternoon nap, then slipped out and went straight to the greenhouse. The old glass building sat at the far edge of the estate, overgrown and forgotten. Laura had once tried to grow orchids there. Since her death, it had stayed locked, unused until now. Alina was already there, seated on an overturned pot. She wore a hoodie now, the hood pulled low. "You followed me," she said softly. "Had to. I saw something." She raised her hand. "Let me talk first." Chase nodded. "I wasn't always a nanny," she began, voice hollow. "Before this, I was youth-groomed. I was 17 when I met Father Colton." "The priest?" Chase asked sharply. She nodded. "He wasn't really a priest, not officially. Just wore the collar to keep people from asking questions. He ran a private home for troubled girls, but it wasn't what it seemed. He was the head of a trafficking ring. They filmed us, threatened us, said we owed them for being saved. Chase's skin crawled. My God, I tried to run, once, got caught. After that, I stayed quiet. I waited, planned. Then one night, during a transfer, I slipped away and disappeared. Changed my name, moved cities, applied as a nanny to blend in. That's when I met you. He stared at her, stunned. So all this time, you were hiding. I thought I was safe, until last week. Someone sent me a photo. An old one, of me, from back then. It was left in Max's toy chest. Chase's blood ran cold. Why didn't you tell me? Because they warned me. Said if I spoke up, Max would pay the price. He stepped back, breath short. They've found me, Chase. They'd been watching. That meeting last night. They want me to come back, to work for them again. Said if I don't, they'll come after the people I care about. Chase's voice was hoarse. And you think I can just run? No, she said. We have to disappear. You, Max, me, tonight. He shook his head. I can't leave everything behind. She stepped forward, eyes wide with urgency. They won't stop. You saw them. They know you saw them. You're a threat now. He looked at her. Why are you protecting me? Elena's voice cracked. Because Max is the first person I've loved in years. And you trusted me when I didn't even trust myself. That evening, Chase paced the hallway, torn between belief and disbelief. Elena's story sounded insane, but the fear in her eyes was real, and that photograph, that couldn't be a coincidence. Still, running away, leaving everything. He needed proof, something concrete. So he did something reckless. He returned to the warehouse. It was nearly midnight when he arrived. The building was quiet. No cars, no movement. He slipped inside through a side door that creaked open just enough. The place was still, empty. Until he heard it. A low hum, like a generator. He followed the sound to a back room, and what he saw nearly dropped him to his knees. Screens, cameras, footage, all running. A control center of some kind. Dozens of monitors showing different girls. Some looked as young as 12. Some were crying. Some were locked in rooms. And on one screen Alina, a clip from years ago, her face bruised, voice shaking. She was younger, so much younger. I want to go home, she whispered on the screen, and then a man stepped into frame. Father, Colton. He smiled at the camera like it was a confessional. Tell them what happens to girls who disobey, Alina. And the video cut. Chase's chest heaved. This was real. He turned to run, but heard footsteps. A flashlight beam swept across the room. Hey, someone shouted. Chase bolted. He ran through a side door, heart hammering. A bullet cracked the wall, near his shoulder. He didn't stop, didn't breathe until he was back in his car, speeding toward the house. When he got home, the front door was open, lights off. Max, he shouted. No answer. Alina, silence. He raced upstairs. Max's bed empty, his toys scattered. A single note lay on the pillow. Come alone. 1 a.m. Doc 9. Panic struck like a wave. Chase crushed the note in his fist. He didn't call the police. He didn't trust anyone now. He grabbed his car keys, slipped a gun into his coat, old one from his military days, and drove. Heart in pieces, mind on fire. Max had been taken, and Alina might have gone back to save him, or worse, she had been taken too. The docs were silent then. A gun clicked behind him. Chase had seen fear before on the battlefield, in boardrooms, even in his own reflection after Laura's death. But nothing compared to this. Not when Max was missing, not when Alina might be walking into the fire she barely escaped once. The note on Max's pillow burned in his jacket pocket. Come alone. 1 a.m. Doc 9. No threats, no signature, just cold instructions, the kind that meant they were watching him now. Chase didn't call the police. He knew what these men were capable of. Alina had trusted him with her secret. If he brought in the law, Max could disappear forever. Or worse, he strapped on a concealed holster, slid in the old Beretta from his military years, and drove to the docks with his headlights off. The ocean wind howling like it knew something he didn't. The docks were nearly empty at night, for the soft creak of boats, the rustle of ropes, and the occasional whistle of the wind through hollow metal. Dock 9 was barely lit. A single lamp overhead flickered. Shadows danced across crates and abandoned fishing gear. The scent of salt water mixed with oil. He stepped forward, trying to calm his breathing. Max, he whispered. Nothing, Elena. Silence. Then a footstep behind him. He turned fast, too fast. A gun cocked in the dark. Drop your weapon. Chase didn. Single quotes D. A man in a leather coat, beard thick, eyes sharp. Where's my son? Chase growled. The man nodded once. Another figure emerged from the shadows. It was Alina. Her hands were zip-tied. Her lip was bleeding, but her eyes were burning with defiance. Elena. Chase took a step forward. Don't, she said hoarsely. They'll kill him. Where is he? Chase demanded. A third man appeared, clean-shaven, calm, and painfully familiar. Father Colton. Only now, he wasn't wearing the collar. Just a sleek black coat and an expression as smug as sin. I have to say, Mr. Whitmore, you're much more stubborn than expected, Colton said. Most men with money cut their losses and move on. But you play hero. Chase's jaw clenched. Where's Max? Colton smiled. He's safe, for now. But that depends on your cooperation. Let her go. Colton shook his head slowly. You see, Elena broke our trust. She was one of our most promising girls. She was smart, obedient, quiet, and then she turned. Elena spat blood. You destroyed lives. I survived you. That's what you hate. Colton ignored her. You'll do one thing for me, Mr. Whitmore, he continued. One small transaction. Chase narrowed his eyes. What kind of transaction? Colton stepped closer, lowering his voice. You have influence, access, investors, powerful friends. There's a man flying in tomorrow. Very discreet. He's interested in something we offer. You will take him to dinner. You will introduce him to your people. You will make it look legitimate. You want me to launder your buyer? Chase asked, stunned. Exactly. Colton smiled. And in return, you get your son and your nanny. Chase didn't speak. His thoughts were racing. They weren't just human traffickers. They were expanding, using public figures as shields. You're insane, Chase said. Colton's smile faded. No, Mr. Whitmore, I'm inevitable. He nodded to the man behind Chase. The gunman stepped forward. You have until tomorrow noon. Do as we say, and the boy lives. Try anything foolish, and we send you what's left of him in a box. Colton turned. The men dragged Alina with them toward a black van parked nearby. Chase's instincts screamed to act. He could take out the closest one, but not all three. Not with Alina in the middle, and not without risking Max. He watched them disappear into the van and drive off into the night. Back at the mansion, Chase collapsed onto the floor of Max's room. The toys, the tiny shoes, the drawing of a dinosaur Max had made just days ago, all tore at him like knives. This was his fault. He brought Alina here. He followed her. He saw the danger, and still, he hesitated. Now, his son was gone, and he was expected to help monsters walk in daylight. He didn't sleep. He spent the night planning. The next morning, at 9 a.m., Chase showed up to a local bar he hadn't entered in years. Inside, in a back booth, sat Mason Torres, a former Marine turned off-the-books fixer. He was the kind of man who got things done when police looked the other way. Chase slid into the booth. I need help, he said. Mason raised an eyebrow. Thought you retired from shady favors. Chase laid out the situation, every gritty detail. Elena's past, the trafficking ring, Max, the dinner. By the end, Mason's jaw was tight. This is heavy, man, dangerous. These people, they vanish. Girls for a living. I don't care. I just want my son back. Mason looked at him long and hard, then nodded. I know someone. Tech guy, smart, quiet. If these men have eyes on you, he'll find their cameras, their trackers. Do it, Chase said. And the dinner? I'll go, Chase said, but we'll be watching them, not the other way around. At noon, Chase arrived at the Lucent, an upscale rooftop restaurant in downtown. He wore a wire, connected to Mason, who waited 2 blocks away with a team of ex-military friends. Inside, the table was already set. The man Colton promised, a foreign investor named Victor Remnivores, seated beside Colton himself, dressed now in a fine blazer, sipping wine. They stood when Chase approached. Ah, Mr. Whitmore, Colton said smoothly. Glad to see you. Reasonable. Chase shook Victor's hand, cold, calculating eyes, the kind that didn't blink at human suffering. The waiter came. They ordered. They talked. Chase smiled, played polite, pretended to be impressed by Victor's international ventures, but under the table, his fingers tapped a code into a small transmitter in his pocket, marking locations. Voices, faces. He learned 2 things that lunch. Victor wasn't just buying girls, he was financing entire routes. Colton didn't just want silence, he wanted access to Chase's business contacts. Before dessert came, Mason's voice crackled through the earpiece. Chase, they're on the move. Alina and Max tracked a van. They're on the edge of the old refinery yard, sending a team now. Chase kept his expression calm. Gentlemen, if you'll excuse me, I need to make a quick call. Colton smiled. Of course, don't be long. Chase left the table, then he ran. The refinery yard had been shut down for years. Rusted fences, empty towers, the perfect place to disappear someone. Mason's team was already there when Chase arrived. They had eyes on the van. Inside a locked trailer, Alina and Max were being held hands-bound, mouths gagged. 3 guards patrolled the area. 1 smoked, 2 carried rifles. Chase didn't wait. He joined Mason, and they moved like shadows, silent, fast, surgical. The first guard went down with a chokehold. The second tried to shout. Mason dropped him with a dart. The third fired a warning shot, but Chase tackled him before he could reload. Within 5 minutes, the area was clear. Mason forced open the trailer lock. Alina gasped. Max cried out, "Daddy!" Chase scooped Max into his arms, shaking with relief. Alina collapsed against the wall, tears streaming. "You came." "Of course I did. They didn't go home. They went straight to a safe house outside the city." Mason's contacts worked fast. Files were copied, evidence uploaded, names, faces, camera footage, everything. By sunset, the authorities had what they needed, not the local police, not even the FBI. Interpol. Alina, single quotes as past crimes charges forced upon her by Colton's group, were wiped clean in exchange for her cooperation. The ring was exposed. Within days, Father Colton was arrested trying to board a private jet. Victor Remnov vanished. Rumors said he didn't make it past the border. For the first time in years, Alina breathed freely. Chase sat beside her in the safe house's quiet kitchen. Max asleep upstairs, hugging his stuffed tiger. "You saved us," she whispered. "No," Chase said. "You saved us. You were right all along." She smiled, eyes misty. "Do you think he'll forget all this, Max?" "Maybe, but one thing he'll always remember." "What?" "That you were there. That you protected him when I couldn't." Alina turned her face away, hiding a tear. "I never thought I'd have a family again." Chase gently reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "Maybe we both just found ours. What they tried to destroy, she rebuilt it weeks later." Spring returned to the city. The flowers in the Whitmore garden bloomed again. Laughter returned to the once quiet halls, and for the first time in years, peace didn't feel like something you had to earn through pen. It just existed. But the journey to get there hadn't been easy. Not after what happened at the refinery. Not after the world finally found out who Father Colton really was. In the days following the rescue, headlines exploded across the internet. High-profile child trafficking. Ring linked to former charity priest, ex-Marine, and CEO team up to save kidnapped boy. Esposi Global scandal survivor speaks. Elena Reyes testifies against elite trafficking network. Elena's identity could no longer remain hidden, but this time, it wasn't shame that followed her name, it was courage. She testified in front of an international task force, revealing how girls were recruited, broken, and sold under the guise of religious counseling. Her story helped bring down 6 known accomplices and freeze nearly $10 million in trafficker and tactical linked assets across 3 countries. And despite what she feared, no one blamed her, not the courts, not the world, not Chase. The mansion had changed. Alina no longer slept in the staff quarters. Max insisted she move into the guest room next to his. He said he had nightmares when she wasn't close. Chase didn't argue. He found himself needing her nearby too, not just for Max's sake, but for his own. It wasn't romantic at first, it was human. 2 survivors, leaning on each other quietly, slowly. And then one night, about 3 weeks after the rescue, he found her outside under the stars, sitting barefoot on the cold steps near the rose garden. "You couldn't sleep either?" he asked gently. She looked up at him, her face soft, unguarded. "No, still hearing things." He sat beside her. They didn't speak for a while. Then she asked, "Do you think it ever really goes away?" "The fear," he said. "No, but the grip it has on you, that gets weaker." She nodded. "Sometimes I forget I'm allowed to feel safe now." "You are," he said quietly. every second. You're safe here. She looked at him then, truly looked at him. And in that moment, for the first time since his wife's death, Chase let the past loosen its grip. He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Max's recovery was remarkable. He never spoke about the time. He was taken, not to therapists, not to Chase, not even to Alina, but he became more protective of his drawings, his bedtime routines, his tiger plushie, and especially of Alina. Can Lena stay forever? He asked one evening while brushing his teeth. Chase smiled. Why? Because when I got scared, I dreamed she found me, and then she really did. Chase knelt down, drying Max's little hands with a towel. She's not going anywhere, buddy. Max nodded. Then, in a rare burst of emotion, he threw his arms around his dad's neck and whispered, I missed you. Chase didn't let go for a long time. 2 months passed. Colton remained in custody, awaiting trial in an international court. Viktor Remnov was still missing, though a rumor suggested he was killed by one of his own clients. The entire system Colton built had crumbled. Alina, meanwhile, was offered multiple interviews, book deals, even a documentary. She declined all of them. I don't want to be famous for surviving monsters, she told Chase. I just want to be someone Max remembers for the right reasons. But she did agree to one thing: opening a home for girls who had no safe place to go, survivors, runners. The overlooked and unprotected Jace offered to fund it. She refused at first, then finally said, all right, but only if you help name it. They called it the Firefly House because fireflies shine brightest in the dark. One quiet Sunday morning, as birds chirped and sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, Chase found Alina in the kitchen teaching Max how to whisk eggs. The scene stopped him cold, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was so normal, so full of life. He stepped into the room, smiling as Max accidentally flung egg yolk onto the counter. Uh-oh, Max giggled. Disaster, Alina teased, laughing, and for the first time, Chase heard her laughter, not laced with restraint. It was free. He stepped closer and gently brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. He began. She looked up, still smiling. I've been meaning to ask you something. He hesitated, then said, do you think maybe we're not just survivors anymore? Her eyes glistened. I hope not, she said softly, because I'm tired of just surviving. And then finally they kissed. It was slow, quiet, like healing, and Max didn't even flinch. He just grinned and went back to whisking eggs, like he'd known all along. Months later, a judge officially approved Elena's name to be added as Max's legal guardian. They didn't rush anything, no flashy proposal, no sudden wedding, just life real, raw, and peaceful. They cooked dinners together, sat through Max's first school recital, spent lazy Sundays watching cartoons, and when nightmares came for any of them, they faced them together. No more hiding, no more running. One evening, a letter arrived at the mansion, no return address, handwritten, sealed in red, wax. Chase opened it carefully. Inside was a simple message. There are more like him. You just haven't seen their collars yet. There was no signature, no threats, just the chilling suggestion that the war wasn't truly over. Chase folded the note slowly. Alina saw his expression. What is it? Someone trying to scare us? Does it? No, he said. Because this time, we're not alone. She nodded. Let them come. I've survived worse. And that was the end of it. They burned the letter and kept living. 1 year later, the Firefly House opened its doors in a quiet corner of the city. Bright yellow walls, wide open spaces, security cameras at every entrance. No collars, no threats, just warmth. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Alina stood in front of the press and said one thing. They took everything from me, but they didn't take my voice. And now, it belongs to those who are still in the dark. Chase stood behind her, Max on his shoulders, clapping proudly. The city didn't just cheer, they believed her, and survivors from all corners started showing up, one by one, looking for the light and finding it. The end.